generally this is not recommended for women, but if you suspect or know you have low testosterone,
Mm.
then this can be a great one because just a few drops of it, like 1 to 10 drops per day, can make a significant shift because you're supporting.
All right, y'all, I'm here with Logan. Logan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Hope.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation. You are an expert in things that we actually haven't really talked about on the show. So I'm excited to get your expertise and insight on this. But I would love to start with your story. I felt usually I wait for like the personal stories later, but I feel like we should start with your story and just how you got into the realm of diving into herbalism. And especially, I liked your kind of the angle with the herbalism for you and talking about performance. It's not something we
Mhm.
hear about very often. So I love that. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your story and what got you into all of this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I took a very different route into
Yeah.
herbalism than most
Yeah.
people do. The average person's like when they get sick or a family member gets sick and
Exactly.
maybe Western medicine is not quite working well for them, they'll look at alternatives and
Hmm.
herbalism. That's something we've had for our entire span of being a species, right? And even
Yeah.
before that, other animals use herbs as well.
Hmm.
But for me, well, there was a touch of that. Like my mom did get cancer and passed away, and she did conventional treatment, so that certainly spurred me on in the
Sure.
alternative path. But beyond that, I was looking at herbs to help my own performance. So, although I wasn't born as like a strong or fit person, I was really a weak and scrawny kid in high school. It was after that that I really got into fitness. This started with body weight training, went into kettlebells, and then started doing the lost art of old time strongman, which is really performance based stuff. So I've done some wild and wacky feats of strength, like pulling a 8,800 pound fire truck by my hair.
Oh
I've
my
lit a
gosh.
kettlebell on fire, juggled it around my body,
Oh my
bent horseshoes,
gosh.
ripped decks of cards in half. Just recently, I ripped 2 decks of cards in half
Oh
at the
my
same
God.
time. So it was in doing these things, again, not naturally gifted toward this stuff, but I was seeking out ways that I could get an edge. So this led me into mental training with neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis, into energy medicine, into a wide variety of fields, including health and nutrition, which brought me to herbalism. And I heard about some herbs. One of the first herbs I ever tried was cordyceps, and I noticed more energy in my workouts that I could swing kettlebells longer. So from that first moment, I was hooked and just kind of kept exploring that. And now, here we are over a decade later, and I have uh, been an advocate for herbs for quite some time since then.
Yeah, I love this. And yeah, you're right. This is not something that we typically hear, like this perspective on herbs. Because yeah, I think you're right. I think we talk about it when, we talk about maybe longevity or, like we're getting sick, whatever. But so what have you found in your kind of strength journey? What have you found to be some of the most supportive herbs for you that have made the most difference?
Yeah, there's definitely quite a few and some different angles, but with the herbs, supporting the hormones, that's really important to
Mm,
men and women these days for a wide variety of reasons. That's going to be important for performance, but also just health and longevity. So there are a number of herbs that can help in those ways. Our biggest seller at my herb business is pine pollen, which is pretty
hmm
unique in that it has phytoandrogens.
hmm
So many people have heard of phytoestrogens. These are estrogenic compounds in soy and flax. It's actually very common. You'll find it in apples and coffee, very common out there. But like soy and flax have significantly more than most
Right.
things. So pine pollen is an herb that has significantly more of these things than you'll find elsewhere. So it's really good for helping to turn on the hormone system. And while it's known as more of a male herb, it actually works really well for women as well. Women have testosterone and the androgens as well, just like 1/10 the amount as men. But even though it's 1/10 the amount, they're actually just as important for health.
hmm
And with all the endocrine disrupting chemicals in our environment, we need a lot of support in this area.
Yeah.
And it's great that we can find that from nature. So definitely for people, especially as they age, that hormone support is going to be really important for, just having the energy to go to the gym, being able
Yeah.
to recover from it. Some other herbs I mentioned, cordyceps, a lot of the herbs that fall into that adaptogen class,
hmm
these are herbs that help your body better adapt to stress. And what is working out besides a stressor, right?
Yeah.
So rhodiola, cordyceps, ashwagandha, schizandra, there are a wide variety of these that are going to help the body to basically ramp up its stress response systems and better be able to deal with whatever stressors, both physical and mental, that you throw at it. And these are typically going to be helpful for energy as well. So, the a thing I try to aim for with herbs is, most people think like, oh, take an herb, and, most people's experience with herbs are some culinary herbs. They make things taste good in
Sure.
food, right? And those definitely bring some health benefits. But when you're dealing with very potent extracts, what I want people to have is like a feelable experience with it. So
Mm.
working with some of the more out there herbs like the Polyricus ant, which has been used for thousands of years in Chinese medicine, this delivers energy that most people can feel when they take it. Like you actually feel like you have more energy
Really?
running through your body.
Yeah.
So this obviously is very appropriate as like a pre-workout herb, but anywhere else you need energy as well, it can be quite useful there.
Yeah, that's crazy. Did you say it was an ant?
Yes.
Like an actual ant, like the bug?
Like actual ants, yeah.
That's
Specific
crazy.
species, and
Okay.
the Chinese especially, they have a medicinal system going back thousands of years, and
Yes.
there's the doctrine of signatures that the nature will provide signs as to the effects of things. Ants being pound for pound the strongest animal on the earth, the Chinese people thought like, hey, I'm going to consume some of this and see what happens with it,
Yeah.
right?
Which makes total
So
sense.
yeah, right. And of course, it's going to be very rich in different vitamins and
Yes.
minerals. And honestly, with this one, there's almost no science on there. So we're not exactly sure why it works, but it definitely
Sure,
does
but
work.
it does. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it makes sense too because I know, like, I love to watch travel shows, and you always see there's all kinds of bugs. They eat all kinds of bugs in East
Right.
Asia, so that makes total sense. That's fascinating. Okay, so let me ask you this. So we're talking about performance. Is there a difference when you're looking at herbs and herbalism? Is there a difference when we're looking at performance versus just, basic herbalism? Like, what are
Yep.
you looking for in terms of a performance? I guess, what do we mean by that?
Yeah, so a couple things that are useful. Everyone's heard that quote. I believe it's attributed to Benjamin Franklin: "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure," right?
Mm, hmm.
So if we're getting to the place where we have some sort of chronic disease and we're trying to cure that with herbs, one, you can't cure anything in the West, right? If you're not a
Right.
medical doctor.
Hmm.
So and even if you get to that state and you're working at it, it's going to be much harder. The thing about prevention is no one gives a crap about prevention in the
It's
first place,
true.
right? It's
Right.
not something that psychologically we're really wired for. But if
Yes.
you're aiming at performance and you're doing this in a holistic way where, you're not sacrificing your health in order to perform, which, there's certainly people that do that. But if you're doing it in a holistic way, like supporting with herbs and doing different things, then your performance is going to increase. And at the same time, you're working on prevention. And this is a way that you can be focused on prevention without just focusing on prevention. So
Hmm.
that's one of the important aspects, I think, to performance herbalism. Another thing is that I really got started with herbs, learning from the Chinese Taoist system. And in this system, they classify herbs according to three different classes. There are the inferior herbs. These are ones that you will use when you are sick and you're really trying to treat something. There's the general or middle herbs, and then there's the superior herbs. The superior herbs, there's only like a handful of these. There's much less than of the other stuff, but these are ones that you take to really support radiant health. This idea of health is not just the absence of disease, but being healthier and healthier is something as an ideal, you can just move towards. And having these are herbs that are non-toxic. They're helping to normalize, so they're just helping support those different systems. You can take them long term, even up to every day for the rest of your life. Really, fewer herbs are in this class, and if you're working with these herbs, the best of the best, then you don't have to worry so much about like, oh, am I taking too much of this? Is this going to
Hmm.
throw me out of balance? Those things still are true to some degree, but if you're working with the best of the best herbs, then in general, you can be supporting your health and performance at the same time. So, of course, in the beginning, I was like, why do all the Chinese have all the best herbs in the world? Like, where are ours, right? The truth is, we do have very good schools of Western herbalism. They're just not nearly as well known, and they're definitely kind of pushed underground with
Hmm.
Western medicine coming
Sure.
online. But it doesn't matter where you are in the world, every people will have those amazing herbs. So that is definitely available. You just have to have some sort of knowledge in order
Right.
to start working with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. What have you found in all your studies, and you've studied this a lot because you have a company around this.
Mhm.
What have you learned? I guess what are some of the most impactful lessons that you've learned in just studying like kind of the ancient traditions and like traditional Chinese medicine and
Mhm.
herbalism? What have been some of the biggest lessons for you?
Yeah, something that is useful is to understand the different like constitutional types. One of the most popular versions of that is from Ayurveda. You have the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. You'll see this mirrored in there's a Western system, Sheldrake, I think his name, but there was the ectomorph, mesomorph, and
Mm,
endomorph,
hmm.
right? And it was literally the same things. And it's not just body types, but the psychology then plays into these as well. Of course, the Chinese, they have the elemental system, and that's the typing systems. There's all these different systems.
Right.
But something that is useful is to understand like, yes, we're all individual and we're all similar. And there's this kind of middle ground of these constitutional systems. Well, one of the things I like to share with people is just like try the herbs out, find what works for you. Ultimately,
Mhm.
that's the only way you're going to know if things work. Even if science says that this herb does that thing, it doesn't mean it actually even works for every single person,
Right,
right?
right.
Science is about averages. There are always outliers in that, right? So short of something like it's good to breathe and more people could do some deep breathing exercise, there's not nothing works for everyone. Even
Right.
like ashwagandha is really good herb for stress, and for some people, it's just not going to
It's
work
not
for that,
right,
right?
right.
Right. So understanding that we are individual and we're all together, but then having these constitutional types can help to pinpoint which of the herbs may be more appropriate for us. Because definitely these are some deep rabbit holes that you can go down for years and years just understanding this stuff. But just taking that like experimental mindset into it, try something, see if it works for you.
Hmm.
That not only lets you know that either yes, this thing is good, I'm going to double down on it, like keep working with it, or I'm going to go a different path. But that also may give you some information from which to make the next decision on a different herb or whatever other modality you might be using as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice. And we talk about that a lot on the show because
Mhm.
especially with all the, there's a bunch of fads and trends and biohacking, this, that, whatever, which is great. But I think it's also always important to point out that there's no one size fits all
Yep.
thing, right? There's no cookie cutter. I mean, I've had clients who've done, ashwagandha is a nightshade. I have clients who
Right.
can't do nightshades. And so it's like, this is contraindicated. So I think it's important to understand that as as powerful and magical as all of these herbs are, that you have to find what works for you. And I think that's such good. So if somebody, for people listening who maybe they want to get started with herbalism, and because I also think like saying a comment like that can be a little scary for people, like, well, how do I know it's not going to do something bad or whatever?
Right.
I guess what is your advice for people getting started? Like, what are some of the like the gateway herbs like to get people started to like get them in and where it's less scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and a comment on that, I'll say that
Yeah.
although herbs can have side effects, they're generally pretty mild.
Yeah.
And if you stop using something, you're gonna stop having the effect. Like I really
Right.
haven't heard stories of people that
Like
take
long-term
something and it
effects.
causes permanent
Yes.
damage,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
That
Exactly.
that's just not going to happen unless you're
Yes.
taking like, there are some very dangerous herbs out there, more like poisons and the
Poisonous. Yeah, that would be on the other end of the
but
spectrum. Yeah.
yeah, so if you're staying away from those, generally it's going to be pretty safe. So some of the gateway herbs, goji berry comes to mind.
Mm,
In fact, a lot of the berries can be great for this. As one,
yeah.
goji tastes great,
Mhm.
which I can't say is the same for all the different
Yeah.
out there, but it is a pretty amazing berry that has, it's super high in antioxidants. It has different polysaccharides that are helping with anti-aging, good for the eyes. It really is. A lot of the berries touch on like a lot of the different systems in the body. One of my other favorite berries is Schizandra. This is one of the top adaptogens in the world. It's
Mm.
called the five flavor fruit because it actually has all five flavors.
Oh,
It's mostly
wow.
sour and astringent, but you can
Yeah,
detect bitterness, sweetness, all the different
that's
flavors
cool.
there. And with that, in any of these ancient systems, they would look at the tastes are going to clue the body into what to do with it. The tastes are a
Mm,
guide to what some of the actions it has in the body. So if it has all the flavors, it's
a
touching on
lot.
all the
Yeah.
systems in the body. Like it's upregulating liver detox. It's helping with the skin and the hair, night vision. It's an adaptogen, so mental and physical stress. It's energizing. Like it hits on a lot of
Wow.
bases.
Yeah. That's
Um,
awesome.
I mentioned the pine pollen before. That one
Hmm.
is, it's not well known by people. This is
Yeah.
actually the pollen of pine trees, but in its powdered form, it's really just a nutrient-packed superfood. Taken in a tincture, which is an alcohol extract, that's going to draw out those phytoandrogens and make them more bioavailable straight into the bloodstream. So in that form, it's a bit stronger. And generally, this is not recommended for women, but if you suspect or know you have low testosterone,
Mm,
then this can be a great one because just a few drops of it, like 1 to 10 drops per day, can make a significant shift because you're supporting that system. And a lot of women are actually low in testosterone. There are some that have high
hmm.
testosterone as well, PCOS, some
Right.
different things as well there. But many women are low. So supporting that. And again, I'm saying testosterone, but it's also about DHEA, which is anti-aging hormone that functions in a lot of different ways in the body. So those are a couple of different herbs. I'll also mention the medicinal mushrooms. Those have become significantly more popular in the last
Hmm.
couple of decades and is still trending upwards. So reishi, chaga is one of my favorites. Then lion's mane is one of
Hmm.
the most trendy mushrooms right now, but for
Hmm.
good reason. How it's supporting the brain with nerve growth factor, brain-derived neurotropic factor, working on some of these different compounds that really support the nervous system. So it's being investigated to help with Alzheimer's, dementia, different things like that.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing those. That is super helpful list. When we're talking about performance, I know you mentioned some that helped you the most, but I'm thinking because we've been talking a lot on the show about women getting into like perimenopause and menopause and strength training and like all these
Mhm.
things that are important as we age. So if we're looking at, let me break this down in like a couple categories. So if we're looking at strength, like if
Yep.
are there herbs out there that can help us with strength?
Yep. So strength is, again, the hormones are going to be really important. And
Mm-hmm.
this is popping to my mind is women have a lot more osteoporosis, the
Mm-hmm.
weakening of the bones than men. And while estrogen plays a role here, a lot of the medical attention goes on that.
Yep.
Testosterone's even more important. And guys have more testosterone, guys have less osteoporosis,
Yep.
right? So actually supporting some of the androgens, which, strength training by itself is going to be very
Sure.
important for that. And the bones are tissues. We tend to think of them just like a skeleton as like dead things, but there's a lot of activity going on there. So if you're actually using the tissues, and that means resistance training, like just walking or cycling isn't really going to do that much, but loading the bones is going to trigger the body to think like, oh, I need these bones. I'm going to lay down some more bone tissue,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then
Yeah.
you supporting that with the right sort of nutrients and the hormone support, then you're going to have strong bones. So that's a little bit on that. Again, the just supporting the energy system, so the ATP in the cells, a couple of herbs that are great for that. The ant I mentioned, again, that's feelable energy for a lot of people. Another one is Shilajit.
Mm.
Shilajit's become popular.
Yes.
It's one of the top anti-aging substances in Ayurveda, and it's known as the destroyer of weakness. Like for me, when I heard that name and the other name, the conqueror of mountains, it's like, what is that? I want to
Yeah,
try
you
that. Can you
need
get that for
that.
me, right? So this is a great one that's going to ramp up the metabolism. It's good for detox. It's really hitting on so many systems in the body, but that's definitely a great one as well there. So for a lot of people, right, like if we're kind of stuck in a place, so one of the reasons I like herbs is like, can we give people a feelable impact with like more energy?
Right.
Then they can start, they have the energy to work out, they have energy to
Mm-hmm.
make some of the habitual shifts that are
Yep.
important to their life. So I like the herbs as a quick start in that. So just to recap, like hormone support and energy, if you get those two, then you should have better gains in the gym, whatever you're
Yeah.
going for.
Yeah. No, that's true. Okay, that was perfect. And yeah, Shilajit has been all over the place. I see that in like everywhere. What about recovery? And you mentioned that a little bit, but just in
Mhm.
terms of recovery. I mean, and not that we're like recovering from being a strong man like you, but just like basic recovery.
Yep.
What are we looking at?
Yeah, so just high nutrition is going to be useful. And when I speak about nutrition, it's really much more about the micronutrients than the macronutrients. humanity, us in the US, we spend way too much time thinking about macronutrients. My personal opinion,
Agreed.
if you want a simplified diet, if your food was healthy, whether that's, a cow or vegetables coming out of the ground, and they're eating healthy food, which is, their natural food, then it's going to be healthy for you. So just kind of simplifying that, and the quality food is going to have much more nutrition. And if you have the nutrition there, then your body's going to be able to recover. And of course, sleep is really important. And so many people have a wide variety of sleep issues. There are some herbs that can help with sleep as well, that can help you to go to sleep in the first place if there's things like insomnia going on, or have deeper, more restorative sleep. Because really, the workouts, like the work in the gym, that's a stressor, but the recovery is where you're really gaining
Yep.
from it. So if you're not getting deep quality sleep, you're not going to be able to bounce back, whether that is strongman or just,
Hmm.
going for a run or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So what are the big ones that will help with that? Because the sleep part for sure. I think we underestimate like what that does to like start strength training and all of
Yeah.
that. So what are some of the herbs that would help us with sleep?
Yeah, sleep's tricky because although we think of sleep, there's like 50 things that can be going wrong, right?
Sure.
So, of course, you also want to look at sleep hygiene and all the different things in there. But some of the different herbs that can help, like valerian, is one of the most
Hmm.
well-known ones out there. Ashwagandha, which we mentioned, that actually is really good for sleep. For most people, it's not like a knock 'em out sedative,
Yeah, yeah.
although some people do have that, especially if they take a bigger dose. But
Hmm.
more so, if you're taking it regularly for a couple weeks, a month, you'll notice that you're just not stressed as much before, so you're able to get into sleep. One of my favorite herbs is blue vervain.
Mm.
This is a bitter nervine, and with the bitter taste on the tongue, it actually like reduces nervous system stress right away. Like I can personally
Interesting.
feel that one right away.
Wow.
This is good for if you're in your head, your mind's kind of cranking, just lowering that down and going into the body. So this can be useful before going to sleep. There's a wide variety of other herbs. Albizia is a good one for like mood support, but also it can just like some of the herbs that help with like meditation. Gotu kola would be another one that can put you in that state, but that also means you can drift off into sleep a little
Hmm.
bit easier as well. But again, like nothing works for everyone. So if you're trying herbs for sleep, like really try a handful of different ones, try some formulas, try them singularly, and find what may work for you. And of
Yeah.
course, again, this should be in addition to other things like, see the sunlight in the morning.
Right.
That's going to help regulate the serotonin, and then
Hmm.
melatonin later. Have blackout curtains, don't have electronics in your room, those sort of things.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. No, that's a good list to get people started. The last one I want to ask, and this may be, I mean, this kind of overlaps with what you were just talking about before, but when we're talking about strength training, right, as we get
Mhm.
older, we also want to hold on to muscle mass. So, is there anything, I know there's no like magic pill that just makes us hold on to muscle mass, but is there any herbs that you haven't mentioned that can lean more towards that?
Um, for the most part, the things I mentioned are going to help. So again, it's
Yeah.
the hormone support and everything there. There are some that will help with like circulation and blood flow.
Mm,
So a beet, and we have a beet juice powder that can be really good for the just circulation, heart health. And of course, that's going to translate to the muscles to some degree. And it's very helpful with nitric oxide, which is important in both working out as well as sex. And that's a fun thing about some of this stuff. We've mostly talked about performance as relates to fitness or in the gym,
mm-hmm.
but sexual performance goes along with that. I really think of
Yeah.
performance in all these different angles. So we were just talking about sleep
Sure.
performance
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
There's cognitive performance. All these things can kind of blend together in different ways. But yeah, the herbs that help with sexual function also help with the workouts. So that can be a good, fun way to play with them as well.
There you go. Two birds, one stone. Why not? I
Yep.
love it. That's perfect. No, that's perfect. Do you have anything else that we haven't talked about as far as herbs and helping, we're speaking to women here and kind of women as we're aging. Are there any that we have that you haven't mentioned that you feel would be good to mention to women listening?
Yeah. So I mentioned the phytoandrogens with pine pollen, but phytoestrogens as well. We mentioned some of the foods, but one of my favorite herbs for that is shatavari. Shatavari is the number one women's herb in Ayurvedic
Oh,
medicine.
wow.
We have a formula called Athena where we pair that with Dong Quai, which is the number one women's herb for women in China, in Chinese medicine. So it's the number one of both these, and it's rounded out with pine pollen, schizandra, goji, some of the berries I
Wow.
mentioned. And we really formulated this to kind of cover all the bases. Like people ask me, what does that do? And it's like a little bit of
Everything.
everything, right?
Yeah.
So as far as a starting place, that's a good one to just like, see how this works for you, because really the range of benefits from that is kind of significant.
Yeah.
And especially around menopause age, whether right before or after, that's where we typically get the best testimonials for that, because it is working. We have this complex array of hormones, from progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, DHEA. We have cortisol, the stress hormone. Really, these herbs in different ways are kind of supporting the entire hormone system,
Mm.
right? And because again, those endocrine disrupting chemicals are just the effects of aging, which aging by itself isn't so much the problem. It is really the toxicity of
Right.
these things over time,
Right.
especially that we're facing today. We really do need support in these different systems. So I think that herbs are a great way to do that. One way I like to think of them is like herbal armor. Some of the science
Mm.
that I've been looking at is it's unfortunate that they torture animals in this way, but a lot of science is done. It's like, hey, let's give this chemical to rats and see what
Hmm.
happens. And then, hey, can we use this herb or this food or this nutrient to combat that damage or stop it
Mm.
from happening? And that's how a lot of science is done, showing that if you have the right sort of nutrients in place, it's going to mitigate a lot of the damage and protect you in the first place. So I
Yeah.
think that's a good effect to have going for you all the time. So that's why I
Yeah.
like to load up on my herbs.
Yeah, no, I love it. Well, and I love that you said the name of that was Athena. I love that you
Yep.
named it that. That's so
Yep.
perfect. I love it. Okay, I mean, I feel like that's where you start, ladies. If you're
Yep.
listening, like it's got it all. So, okay, that was perfect. Okay, this is so good. Okay, I have one more question I want to ask you that I like to ask everybody as we wrap up. Before I do that, can you let everybody know where they can find out more about you and
Mhm.
your herbs and everything that you're doing with that?
Yeah, the website is lostempireherbs.com. The lost
Perfect.
empire is nature that we've gotten away from. So
Mm-hmm.
that is what we're hoping to bring back to people, because health is really like so much of our health problems these days is because we've gotten far off track of alignment with nature. So if we
Mm-hmm.
can bring that back on track, we can thrive in performance as well as longevity and health
Yeah.
span as well. So lostempireherbs.com.
I love it. Perfect. Of course, we'll have the link to that in the show notes, so y'all go check it out and go shop and go look up Athena. I'm gonna go look that one up. Okay, so the last question I want to ask you is, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Hmm. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is we often use the term purpose singular, but I think us humans often have multiple purposes, right?
Mm,
Like I'm spreading this message of herbs out there in the world, and I'm raising a family. I
mm,
have my child. Like, is it either or? I have multiple purposes, so that is helpful because people are like, I have to find my purpose. I have to find
yes.
my purpose, and while that's important, right? One step often leads to the next, right? So it's not few people actually have like know their purpose from being born to their entire life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those lucky few are out there, and God bless them. But for the
Mm-hmm.
rest of us, it is so often a golden thread. It is one
Mm,
foot in front of the other. So, for me, it was the strength training that led to herbs. Like I wouldn't have gotten to herbs just by itself. It led to all these other paths,
yeah.
and they really complement each other in different ways. And it's still an unfolding path, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right where I am right now, it's going to be different in 10 years, but what I'm doing right now is going to inform where the purpose comes next.
Yeah, that's such a great answer. And I think that's so important because I do think we get caught up in finding like the one thing, right? The one thing and it is
Mhm.
a constant unfolding. It's like you just follow the breadcrumbs one to the next, and then your purpose evolves as you evolve. So that's such a good answer. Thank you for sharing that. I love
You're
that.
very welcome.
Okay, this was so good. Y'all, I think y'all learned a thing or two today. And there's a link in the show notes for y'all to go explore everything that Logan talked about today. Thank you so much for sharing your time and the dedication that you have to this topic for all of us. And just I love the message behind the name of your company. I think that is we are doing ourselves a huge disservice by just we've become so disconnected from nature and from the earth. So I love that. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you for having me, Hope.